Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Brogi Naric on film. Today I'm going to be giving my review of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which was directed by Michael Daltrey, who directed Krampus back in 2015. Didn't see it. I heard good things about it. And he directed Trick or Treat back in 2007, which was a fun movie. I kind of like that one. And this is the sequel to I believe, the 2014 Godzilla movie, which I have not seen. I have not seen that movie. I have seen a clip that had like the 2 minutes or the 4 or so minutes that the monsters were actually in that movie. So if you were upset about that, you do get more monsters in this movie. Although apparently not enough for some people, because some people there's a lot of strong feelings about this movie. It kind of reminds me of what happened with Glass that came out earlier this year, where some people really loved it and some people really hated it. And that's kind of the thing with this movie where, like, especially the critics were shitting on this movie. Then the fans saw it, and the fans are a bit split on whether they love it or not. Now, I'm not the biggest Godzilla fan by any means. So when I first saw the trailer, it was like, wow, the creatures look cool, the visuals look cool. There's a lot of people in here, and I don't know how much of that's going to work. Now, seeing the movie, the creatures look cool, the monsters are cool, the humans are fine, and I had a blast watching this movie. That's kind of the thing, because I don't think there's as much human stuff as it was in the first movie. I don't know, I haven't seen it, but you do get a lot of kaiju action, but it's spread out through this movie. That would, I guess, would be one of the negatives, is that they're maybe far too spread out, and the movie is pretty long, and it could have been shortened a bit. I do agree that the runtime is a bit much, but it didn't bother me. It didn't ruin it for me because I was engaged enough where, it didn't really bother me that much. The acting is basic. There's nothing, I didn't feel the acting was bad, but there was nothing overly great about it. Some of the certain character choices aren't the greatest. The humor is fine. It doesn't overshadow anything, but to me, it didn't really take anything away from it. There is one character that's like your character relief. It was the dad from Get Out. He's pretty funny. I really enjoyed that actor. He had a couple of one-liners every so often. The cast is, like, the human cast is expansive, and there's just a lot of people that are just there just to be there. Like I said, none of the characters necessarily stand out because they're not given that much development, which could be a negative. For me, it didn't necessarily bother me, but yeah, if you're gonna focus on those characters enough, you should probably have a little more there for them. But once again, I was not there to see. I didn't really care about Eleven and her mom. I was there to see Godzilla beat some ass and watch the monsters fight. And I got to see Godzilla beat some ass and watch the monsters fight. So I was entertained. I like the world building. The world building is very interesting, and how the Titans or the kaiju, how their origins tie into human history, and what's going on and why they're doing what they're doing. The monsters, I feel like, had their own unique enough personality traits. They don't all just come off as, oh, big monster this, big monster that. The main four we get, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan, they all have enough sort of personality where you can kind of, get enough sense of a personality out of these animals, basically. So that was cool. Not just the design of the creatures I like, but the design of this world, where, like, it's sci-fi, but it still was grounded enough where it seemed realistic-ish. I like that. And one of the things, the tone of this movie is kind of goofy, which some people don't like or they do like. Because some people are like, oh, the plot is dumb. And I'm like, this is a movie about giant monsters fighting to be the apex predator on this planet. I don't know how you make that serious. Like, I don't know how like, do they want this to be a David Fincher movie or a Stanley Kubrick film? Like, I don't know how serious you can make something like that. And for what they did, they didn't make it a parody. Like, this isn't a parody. I don't feel like they shit on anything. They had a lot of callbacks to the other movies. To me, there's a moment, like, early on in the movie. Oh, that's another thing. The pacing could have been better, but this movie isn't that slow. Like, when it starts slow off, probably like the first maybe like the first 8, maybe 10 minutes is kind of slow, but that's to kind of get you into things. But then once you know it gets going, it stays going, and there's a urgency, there's an intensity, and then it slows down a little bit later on, and then it builds back up. So I was not bored. I was engaged, you know, the whole time. The tone of the film, to me, it felt like it reminded me of a Saturday morning cartoon, but like not too wacky. Because there's a moment early on where the villains pop up, the human villains pop up, and they burst into this room and they kill everyone, and then the bad guy walks in through the smoke, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like a cartoon, like he's like all serious, and you know they're all military. I was like, oh, this is gonna have a little fun to it. Like they're not gonna take it super seriously, although they kind of drift in and out with the seriousness. Like it's a level of seriousness, but it doesn't reach the level of parody, which was fine. This was like a live action cartoon brought to life, and like with the technology being sort of realistic-esque to it, it made me think of G.I. Joe. I was like, I would like to see this guy do a G.I. Joe movie. Like, it's got enough fantasy elements to it, but it's still sort of grounded. I would love to see this guy do something with G.I. Joe. Just saying. I love Ken Watanabe. Ken Watanabe, he was in the first one. He's cool. He has a really good moment in this. My favorite character out of everyone was Kyle Chandler. He plays Eleven's dad, and Vera Farmiga plays her mom. Vera Farmiga is my least favorite character in this movie, and I'll get more into that in the spoilers. But Kyle Chandler was cool. He's not necessarily the main. It's kind of hard to pick a main human character because it focuses on that family mainly. Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga, and Millie Bobby Brown. But I guess your main character is Godzilla, kind of. The main human villain, played by Charles Dance, Jonah Allen, he's fine. Not much to him. You've seen he's an ex-military guy who, once he hates humanity, and humanity is a virus, and the kaiju are here to cleanse it. It's to fight the fever. That basic sort of thing. Other stuff. The soundtrack is really good. They have the classic Godzilla music in here whenever he pops up. Godzilla was a badass. Godzilla was a true hero, because whenever the humans was in danger, at that last moment, Godzilla has to run in and take out Ghidorah. He was really cool. I like the different animalistic behaviors of each of the creatures. How he's like, oh, he's doing this to show his dominance, or the creature's doing this because it's scared. I kind of like how they had that throughout the film. It made them seem more realistic. Another comparison I would have, that this movie kind of reminds me of Pacific Rim, which was a movie where it was at the base, it was about giant monsters fighting giant robots. That's what we got. And a lot of people complain about the story being basic, or the humans not being that developed. And it's like, at the end of the day, the draw is giant monsters versus giant robots. And that's kind of how this movie is, where like the human characters aren't that well developed, but the spectacle is there. And so I'm fine with that. And I think that was kind of the goal. I'm not sure. I guess that's where the debate lies. If I was to grade this film, I would give it a solid B. Or I liked it a little more, so probably like a 8.5 out of 10, because I enjoyed myself. I was happy that I got to see the monsters. And it wasn't just the monsters fighting, it was how they fought, because each had their own special techniques. I'll get more into that in the spoilers. I also want to see Godzilla versus King Kong, because when they first announced it, I'm like, I haven't seen Skull Island. I'm like, I guess I care about that. But after seeing this, I don't know who's directing it. Oh, actually, no, I don't know who's directing it. I want to see what they do, because they've built it up, and I'm excited. So really, that's all I have to say for non-spoilers. So stay tuned, and I'll get into the spoilers. All right, so spoilers. Let's get into it. So you got So basically, the whole problem with this movie is Kyle Chandler and was it Mark Russell and Dr. Emma Russell? Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga. This is the worst. Basically, all they had to do was go through couples counseling, and none of this shit would have happened. But because they were so stubborn in their divorce, it almost led to destruction of the planet. That's basically what happens, because they were a family. They were in San Francisco in the first movie, and their son died as he was a casualty of the fight in the first movie. So they get divorced, and Vera Farmiga, she works for the group called Monarch, which is this militaristic science research group that keeps tabs on the Titans and try to track down things and all of that. And she's working with them, and she has the daughter. Cal Chandler's I don't know, he's like filming animal documentary. Anyway, so they're in China, her and her daughter in China, and they're there where Mothra is being birthed, and it's a larva. That was a cool scene where she's like going crazy, and she has this device called Orca, which allows her to match different patterns of the Titans, and she can control and in a way communicate with them, where she can appear aggressive or she can appear like a non-threat, and she can also in a way kind of manipulate them to a degree. And it was a thing that her and her husband worked on that was supposed to work on whales, but now it works on kaijus. And so after that, they get kidnapped by Charles Dance and his people. And then they bring in Kyle Chandler, and they're like, we got to find your daughter and your wife because they got this device. And he hates the kaiju from the beginning. He's like, look, I want them all dead. Because, that's the other thing. Monarch is kind of in trouble because especially the U.S. military is like, you're not telling us what you know about them, and we want to kill them. And they're like, we shouldn't kill them. You got like Sally Hawkins and Ken Watanabe and Tom Middleditch are like, no, don't kill them. We're kind of working this stuff out. But the military is like, nah, we're going to kill them. So they go to Antarctica. That's where Ghidorah is in hibernation. And they break into the bad guys. They break into the facility. And they eventually release Ghidorah because, before that, Kyle Chandler, they run into Godzilla, and Godzilla kind of shows up to check him out, which was a cool moment where he's in the water and he's like, his back is glowing and he's like sending this intimidation signal. It was pretty cool. And that's another thing. Color plays very much in this movie. The different color palettes. Each creature has its own unique color palette. When things are bad, it's lit up red. When things are calm or whatever, it's lit up blue. Or when Godzilla's around, it's blue. Ghidorah is yellow. Mothra is kind of yellowish, maybe, or more of a gold. And when Rodan is around, it's red and orange. And so they go to the facility to stop them from releasing Ghidorah, and Kyle Chandler's there to stop them. But the mom actually picks up the detonator and blows up the ice to release Ghidorah. So they're like, well, we're coming to save you, and why would you release this creature who is now wreaking havoc all around he's starting to wreak havoc around the world. That was the bit where they were escaping and they were about to get killed, but then Godzilla came in. He was like the Avengers in Endgame. They was on their left because the ship couldn't leave, but Godzilla came in and they had their fight, and Godzilla, he was holding his own for a degree, but Ghidorah was fucking him up. And basically they get away, and then that leads them to Mexico, where the wife calls him up and she's like, yeah, because they weren't sure who released them. And he's like, she did it. And they're like, are you sure? And they're like, no, she did it. And she explains, she's based on some Thanos shit where she's like, humans are a virus, and the Titans are reactivating because we've caused harm on the planet, and the Earth has sent them out to get rid of to fight the fever. And it's a good thing because wherever the creatures appear, they're like deforestation. They take out, the land, but then more growth, like plant life grows more because of their radiation affects the environment. So it's making things better. And she's like, this is the reason why I'm doing it, because of our son. And it's like, you dumb bitch, you do not know what you're doing. You have unleashed a powerful being that you cannot just simply control with this little device. And that was my problem. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you are so stupid right now. So I can see why some people don't like these human characters. I mainly didn't like Vera Farmiga because I'm like, Kyle Chandler is doing everything he can do to save you and your daughter, and you are being dumb by petting the world. Not only your daughter in danger, you're putting the entire world in danger by doing this. But she's like, oh, we can control it because we got this little device. Wrong. You can't. And the reason they can't, because Ghidorah is different from the other Titans, because like in the original movies, he's an alien basically, and they do explain like he might be extraterrestrial, and they explain it in a way where they didn't dwell on it too long, but it's like he's something else because the ancient texts say that he fell from the sky, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's go with that. Rodan pops up in Mexico, and he's an asshole. Like I said, the action scenes are really good. And once again, Godzilla pops up the fight. No. They use they swoop in. The Monarch team is already there trying to evacuate people. And then the main team goes in to piss off Rodan to leave the area because there's a storm coming that's heading towards them, and they realize that the storm is actually Ghidorah. He's so powerful, he causes this like a Category 6 storm around him, and so they're like, let's get them together. So they fight a little bit, and Rodan kind of gets messed up. Then Godzilla comes in, and he fights them, and then while they're trying to evacuate with the people, the military is like, hey, evacuate the area. We got a missile called the the oxygen killer or some shit like that, and we just launched it. It's gonna take them out because we gotta kill them. So they're leaving, and Godzilla bites off one of Ghidorah's heads. They get hit by the rocket, but it doesn't harm Ghidorah, but it does fuck up Godzilla. Like, Godzilla might be dead. So, and then we see that Ghidorah can actually regenerate. He grows his head back, which was actually pretty cool how it looked when he did that. So Godzilla's dead. Ghidorah is now unleashed. He's doing his own thing where they thought they can control him and control the unleashing, the awakening of each of the different titans throughout the planet, which I think was about like, they said it's about like 40 of them or something like that. But Ghidorah does it on his own. And well, he's powerful and such an alpha that his presence is now waking up the other creatures, and we see other ones popping up throughout the planet. There's like one that looked like one of the ones from the first movie. There's this weird mammoth ape looking. It's like a mammoth tusk, but it sort of moves like an ape type one. There was like a spider looking one, and some other ones that pop up, and they're all converging to where Ghidorah is, which is in DC. They track down Godzilla, which they find out is this ancient, almost like Atlantis, underground, ancient civilization that more ancient than the Greeks and the Egyptians, even more ancient than the Sumerians, I guess. And they worship Godzilla. There's a whole thing where they gotta hit him with a nuclear bomb, which Ken Watanabe sacrifices himself to set off the bomb, which then regenerates Godzilla. And then after that happens, they go to DC. Well, no. They're heading to DC, but then they end up heading to Boston because that's where the wife is hiding. That's where they live, and they're hiding in the bunker. And the daughter steals the device. And because, of course, at this time, Vera Farmiga's having second thoughts because all these people are dying. I'm like, gee, who could have thought that was going to happen? Oh, anyone with a damn mind could have seen that happening. So she's got the device, and she's got a signal that's pissing off Ghidorah, so he's coming to Boston. Godzilla's coming to Boston, and they all meet up at was it Fenway Stadium, Fenway Park, where the Red Sox play, and that's when you get the big fight. Ghidorah's trying to kill her because he's trying to find the signal. Then Godzilla comes up from the water with the military there, the military and Monarch there to help him. So Godzilla and Ghidorah's fighting, and then they're fighting. The humans are down on the ground trying to find. Conveniently, they find the device, which was under all this rubble, but they happen to find it. It's banged up. Then they also have to find the daughter, which at that time Vera Farmiga's there trying to find the daughter too, and she comes in and saves them while Godzilla and Ghidorah's fighting. Rodan comes in because Rodan is like on Ghidorah's side right now, and so he's fighting Godzilla too. And then Mothra comes in, which was awesome, and she helps out with the fight. And they also mentioned like Godzilla was regenerated, but he has too much nuclear energy in him, and he's going to explode in 12 minutes. For some reason, it takes at least 20 minutes before that actually happens, but there's a ticking clock of he's going to explode in 12 minutes, but that was the longest 12 minutes I've ever seen. But anyway, they rebuild the device to try to draw Ghidorah away from the area so Godzilla can heal up, because Godzilla got messed up again in the fight, and Rodan ends up no. Rodan was about to kill Mothra, but Mothra hits him with the stinger and like took a big chunk out of his chest, and he backs off. And then she tries to fight Ghidorah, but Ghidorah kills her, and then that's when they distract Ghidorah, so Godzilla can regenerate. And then of course he gets back up, and then he's like, oh no, what happened after that? Oh yeah, they were getting into the plane, and the mom had the device, and they was waiting for her to get in the plane, but she decides to stay back, and so they're like fly off without her, still distracting Ghidorah. Then Godzilla comes in, and he's like atomic hot. He's like red hot, and like anything he touches is now burning up, and he's basically like giving off these waves of nuclear energy, and he like pulsates, and it like hits Ghidorah and it's hurting him, and then he pulsates again, it's hurting him even more, and he like claws him. Big explosion, and then you find out Godzilla saves the day, and after that Boston is fucked, and all the other creatures that were close by roll up to Godzilla, and then Godzilla's like on the top of the hill looking at them like, oh, y'all want to fight? But they like bow down to him. Rodan does it first. And then there's this cool shot with him standing on the you know, on top of looking at the monsters, and they all bowing down to him, and he roars. And that's the end of the movie. They like cut it right there. I was like, yes, thank you. And then the credits are like, so like the aftermath and how the humans are dealing with, you know, these new monsters and the different health benefits and technology they can now create with these creatures, and the dangers of these creatures. The revelation of this new ancient information that comes from these creatures. And of course they build up to Kong. There's like all this stuff like, oh, Skull Island, there's all this activity on Skull Island, which is, you know, which they did that a lot throughout this movie, where like, oh, this happened on Skull Island. And I'm like, all right, I got you. And there's like this ancient painting of ape fighting Godzilla, and I'm like, okay, so this is like something that's been happening over the centuries, I guess. Who's going to be the new king? Because Godzilla is the king, but there's another king, a younger king coming up ready to fight. And I don't know what the hell Godzilla's got. I mean, I don't know what King Kong has for Godzilla, because Godzilla is bigger, survived nukes. Nukes don't harm him, they make him more powerful. And he has nuclear fire breath. Godzilla has his hands, his feet. He is, I would guess, smarter, because Godzilla's not dumb, but I guess he's smarter. He can probably make weapons or something to help him out. I don't know. I didn't see Skull Island. But yeah, Godzilla's got to get his weight. I mean, King Kong's got to get his weight up if you go actually beat this man. But like I said, the soundtrack is really cool. I had a fun time. I was highly entertained, highly pleased. It's a movie you really have to watch to make up your own opinion. Don't just hear what someone says and be like, oh, that movie sucked, or hear what someone says, oh, that movie is great. Watch it for yourself. Make your own mind. Don't be a sheep. And that's pretty much all I have to say. There was a shout out to the little fairy twins from the Mothra movies, because there's these two Chinese girls who are the scientists on the team, and their mothers were scientists from Monarch, and then their mothers were also scientists. So they're like third generation Monarch scientists, and they have a connection to Mothra, which was like a nod to those fairies that had a connection to Mothra. I thought that was kind of cool how they fit that in there. That's about the main things I noticed. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's a fun time. Check it out if you can. I think it's worth seeing in theaters. I really enjoyed it. That's pretty much all I have to say. If you like my review, like the video, share it. Think about subscribing to the channel. Check out other videos on this channel, other reviews, other reactions on this channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.
Finish this thought. I am a slave to
the booty.